Appreciate everybody being here today. I know everybody's busy, so I appreciate your time and being here. Hope everybody has a great show. I know we're just getting started, but I certainly wish you the best. I know a lot of folks in the audience, and I know a lot of y'all are anglers. So if you're like me and you walked into the place this morning and saw the entirety of the sport fishing industry on display, maybe a little goosebumps, certainly electric environment. It makes me realize why fishing is such a great activity, and 53 million of us did it last year. It also reminds me that the sport fishing industry helps fund fisheries conservation. And so that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about today, the Sport Fish Restoration Act and the program, and then tell you a little bit about a fairly recent initiative called Partner with a Payer that is trying to get the word out about sport fish restoration. For more than 70 years, fishing tackle manufacturers, or those that manufacture fishing equipment, have been a foundational partnership in the sport fish restoration and wildlife restoration program. Today we're just going to talk about sport fish restoration. But the sport fish restoration program has had a remarkable, long-standing mark on sport fisheries in this country. I think you heard this morning it's considered to be one of those most well thought out conservation models in our country's history. Sport Fish Restoration Act goes back to 1950. It directed or invested manufacturers' tax on fishing equipment back to state game and fish agencies' efforts to enhance sport fish and manage sport fish. All those things that they do. Educate anglers, introduce folks to angling, increase participation in fishing. The facilities such as boat ramps, all are supported with these SFR funds. Thought of as a grand idea. In my mind, it's a fairly simple concept, almost thought of as a cycle, and that better fishing, thriving sport fish populations, more opportunity, more access lends itself to growing the angler base, which go out and buy fishing equipment in pursuit of their passion. Unfortunately, you get outside of rooms like this and circles that are semi-aware of the sport fish restoration program, awareness is really not that great. In fact, there's probably what could be couched as a lack of awareness about the benefits of this program and the long success that it's achieved. So that leads me to the Partner with a Payer initiative. It's an initiative to try to change some of that. It's an awareness campaign that wants to spread the word and make sure folks are aware of this great conservation model. It's a collaborative effort between the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Wildlife and Sport Fish Restoration Program, the fishing tackle manufacturers, the trade associations, ASA, state agencies, and at its core, it is a communication initiative. It's got 4 straight goals. Increase the awareness of the success of this program and the benefits that are realized by the fishing tackle manufacturers. Increase awareness and understanding of fisheries biologists so that they know where this funding comes from and they know more about the manufacturers that produce this funding. Also, we want to increase access to success stories. We want to spread the word, if you will, and also build upon the long-standing partnership that has existed for decades and make sure those relationships remain strong. Several ways to do this. The Partner with a Payer, I think one of the main focuses on what we call Partner with a Payer events. These events are a gathering, if you will, between fish and tackle manufacturers, state fisheries biologists, and they entail seeing sport fish restoration projects on the ground that highlight what is being done with these funds. Whether it be a manufacturer's tour or a field trip to one of the state agencies' projects, they all serve to make sure those relationships stay strong, that folks understand each other, and Quite simply, they provide a great platform for dialogue and discuss the issues of the day. Speaking of dialogue, I'll quit talking for just a second because I think I've got a video that probably better explains or illustrates what these Partner with a Payer events are all about. How's the volume?
Now, the Sportfish Restoration Fund is probably the best kept secret this country has. And it's a shame because everybody should know how much anglers do for conservation. And it's the product that they buy from these manufacturers that spend the money on these excise tax to ensure that we have good fishing.
1950 is when the Sportfish Restoration Program was authorized. And in the 70 years since then, it has transformed many of our fisheries. When we go out and fish, we don't often worry about if there's fish or how many of them because of the success of this program.
Events like what we had today is critical for not only the industry folks to get to know federal and state officials, but also because it's critical to employees of the agencies, like on my own agency, to get to know who the payers are, how they work, what their needs are. And for me, most importantly, is to find the overlap of common goals and objectives for conservation.
Fishing is about relationships. And when we have an event that brings these people together, Partner with the Payer, when you bring the individual companies that are producing the product and sell fishing tackle and actually pay a federal excise tax to make sure that our fisheries are healthy, that we have fish, that we have clean water, and we have access to those fish. And it's really important that these manufacturers have a chance to talk to the state and the federal agencies and see what they're doing with that money.
Until a few years ago, I had no idea where our excise tax dollars even went. Through outreach efforts from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, we learned a lot about the great initiatives and programs that they have.
Our ability to manage fisheries resources in the state would be greatly diminished without the Sportfish Restoration funds that are generated through these excise taxes. In the freshwater fisheries program in South Carolina, they account for a little over 40% of our operating budget every year.
Anglers have been investing in restoring sportfish populations for over 75 years. And this is a funding model that has been tried and true and proven, not only here in South Carolina, but across the country.
Every single fishing pier and every single Take Me Fishing program that we have is funded by these excise taxes from our industry partners.
I believe the best part of it is creating a system of equity across the industry, that we're all pitching in to make a better future and current state for the industry.
I would say manufacturers are foundational to our system of funding conservation.
If you didn't do this, we would not be able to do our jobs. I think that it's really important for manufacturers and industry to understand the impact that they have.
It's easy as anglers for us to take it for granted that when we want to go put a boat in, that there's a boat ramp there. Or that when we want to go to a fishery that either fish have been stocked in that area or the fisheries populations are managed. And I want our industry partners to know, hey, you're a vital role.
I'd tell the manufacturers that we could not do it without them. I'd tell them how grateful we are for enabling people to pursue their passion. And we want to be great partners as we sustain access and opportunity to allow people to continue to pursue those passions now and in the future.
So I think everybody gets a sense of what these events are about, and you'll hear a repetitive message throughout, whether it's me talking today or talking with anybody with state agencies or the wildlife and sportfish restoration folks or even industry. You saw Z-Man talking about the importance of this partnership and making sure that the partnerships are carried forward. You know, we were kind of given this 70-year-old partnership, and it's imperative that we make sure relationships stay strong and move this thing forward. So the events are only one way to kind of get the message out, but there are other ways, and that is the development and distribution of media projects or products such as articles and videos, but those are the mechanics, and I'll kind of get to those later in the program. What I think is important is the what are we communicating. And if you start looking at the success of this program from a regional or national standpoint, the reach and the impact that sport fish restoration funds have on sport fishing gets very impressive. And I've pulled a couple of examples just to prove that point. If you look currently, there are 9,000 boating access or fishing access sites that are operated and maintained using these funds that are derived from the excise tax on sport fishing equipment. Since we're in the Southeast, I just thought I'd pull a little regional stuff for context. In the Southeast alone, 2,000 boating access sites are operated and maintained annually with sport fish restoration funds. The funds are also important to states in the construction of their new ramps and those projects that are meant for boating infrastructure or clean water. That's a nice way to say the pump out facilities that this program provides for. In that period between 2014 and 2021, 320 new access sites were built using SFR funds and over 1,000 boating infrastructure and clean water projects. What about fish production? When you start looking at fish production and stocking and hatcheries, we'll talk a little bit about. SFR funds or sport fish restoration funds support the stocking of more than 1 billion fish every year. And that billion fish is across more than 70 species. In fact, looking at it, I think last year was exactly 77 species. I certainly can't name them all, but they run the gamut. Largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, speckled sea trout, cobia, muskie, walleye, and the list goes on and on. Hatcheries represent a very important tool to state agencies in their efforts to enhance sport fish populations. And these excise tax dollars are used in the operation and maintenance of 321 hatcheries nationwide. Again, just in the Southeast, you're talking about 54 hatcheries that are supported with these sport fish restoration funds. What about aquatic education? That is those efforts that teach people about fishing and about being good stewards of our aquatic resource. 1.5 million people every year receive training in fishing and aquatic resources. And these funds support states' efforts to connect people to our aquatic resources, and they also help the states with their initiatives to increase fishing participation. That is, keep people fishing, introduce folks to fishing that haven't tried it before, and also address the lapsed anglers. And there's a variety of means, whether it's the traditional family and kids fishing rodeos or events that we probably all grew up with and attended, or some new special fishing program such as a community fishing program or Kentucky's neighborhood program. They range from certifying and teaching fishing instructors so they can go out and teach fishing classes. I mean, the list is just endless on how states are trying to achieve this R3 within the fishing community. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it, but there's other methods out there from a participation standpoint and a citizen science standpoint to keep people fishing, whether it's Florida's Trophy Catch program or up the road, Georgia and South Carolina's Bass Slam program. There's all kind of participatory projects in the works to help keep people and fuel that fishing desire. All right, what about research and monitoring? These funds also support important research and management projects that the states conduct towards enhancing sport fish populations. This includes research and monitoring that benefit more than 200 species of fish. I'd also be reluctant if I didn't mention these funds also support the habitat projects that states use in their sport fish management efforts, whether it is offshore artificial reefs, nearshore oyster bar restoration projects, or inland lakes fish attractor programs and habitat programs. So I mentioned earlier that the initiative is trying to spread the word and highlight these success stories through a couple of different ways. And that's through articles and videos that cover a variety of topics. It can be a research project on bass in Florida, smallmouth project in Oklahoma. We've written articles on walleye in West Virginia, South Carolina boating access or mega boating access projects, or states' efforts to introduce people to fishing and keep people fishing. Wide topics, wide variety, but they all have a central theme, and that is to illustrate that these funds derived from fishing excess tax dollars are successfully put on the ground and help states achieve their sport fish enhancement goals. I think if you combine it with our efforts with wildlife restoration, we're actually up to 70 articles now that have been published, and I think that number is probably 15 videos. Places where these will be published is in industry-centric outlets such as Fishing Wire, Outdoor Wire, fishing tackle retailer. I absolutely know very little about reach, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room that know a lot more about reach than I do. But what I've been told is the reach of these articles and these success stories is getting very impressive. Once they're initially published in these outlets with high subscription and then get posted or shared to sites like BASS that have hundreds and hundreds of thousands. We've had stories certainly approaching that million mark in terms of reach. Can't have a communication initiative without a website, and in my biased opinion, Partner with a Payer initiative has a pretty good one. All those stories and videos that I've highlighted prior to this are all kept on that website. It's frequently updated with new information that shows the success of this program from a national standpoint. And so I certainly encourage anybody and everybody to visit that site and certainly use the products that are on that site as we try to get this message out. Partner with the Payer events, we've had 4 in the last 6 months. I think we've seen the video on the one hosted by South Carolina DNR and Z-Man. We had an event in Pennsylvania with Hopkins Spoons back in spring of 2022. In Oklahoma, Zebco provided a facility tour for one of these events, and the most recent was an event with Wisconsin and Minnesota DNRs and St. Croix Rods. So for folks that are interested in knowing or finding out more about these and want to get out and see some of these projects, let us know. We're in Conservation Corner. You can go to our webpage. There's some forms. Just fill out, hey, I'm interested in one of these events, and we'll certainly help the liaison to get those things going. I think I'm about ready to wrap it up. But I wanted to leave y'all with another very brief video that speaks to the enduring partnership that the Sportfish Restoration Act has fostered over the years between the fishing tackle industry, state wildlife, federal wildlife and sportfish restoration program. Again, I think the video can say it much better than I, so let me see if I can bring that one up. Volume good?
To cast a fly upon the water, to reel in your personal best, and to reap the rewards of America's fisheries, there is a need to not only maintain our waters and the habitats and sport fish which live within them, but also to restore the ones at risk of being lost. As a nation, we are fortunate to have the benefits of clean waters, diverse fisheries, and public access, made possible by the link between anglers and boaters, fishing tackle and boating manufacturers, and the state and federal fish and wildlife agencies which manage and conserve these resources. By purchasing the equipment one needs to fish or boat, they are joining the tackle makers, rod builders, biologists, and everyone in between, which, when woven together, become the very fabric that creates fisheries conservation as we know it. Thanks to the long-term partnerships between these manufacturers and the state and federal fish and wildlife agencies, the Wildlife and Sport Fish Restoration Program can fund critical work, clean water, and continue to build upon our conservation heritage, forming a self-sustaining system that comes full circle, ensuring at the end of the day, we have the access and populations needed to not only fish and boat, but to just be yourself, to spend time with family and friends, to create the next fish story, and to enjoy a day on the water. Since 1950, excise taxes paid by fishing tackle manufacturers and from the sale of motorboat fuels have been the principal funding source used by state and federal fish and wildlife agencies nationwide, working each day to not only provide angling and boating opportunities, but to ensure that our waters will forever be connecting people with nature, making new memories, and keeping tight lines.
Just again, over 70 years, this conservation model has been in effect. And I think one of the best quotes I've heard from these videos is, it's proven, it's tried, and it works. And so I think there's quite a few thank yous to go around, whether it be thank you to our industry partners, who help fund this conservation, or the thank yous to the state fish and wildlife agencies that put these conservation measures on the ground. So that's all I got. If there's any questions or anything I didn't cover or some discussion, please let me know. And again, I thank you for taking time out of your busy day.